In this Canon 80D video tutorial, I'm going to be walking you through how to find the most important settings for video on your camera. I'm Amanda Horvath, and I'm all about helping business owners and entrepreneurs leverage the power of video without breaking the bank or taking up tons of their time. If you're looking to use video in your strategy this year, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified every time I release a new video. If you're new to getting started in video and this might be your first DSLR that you ever bought, then I highly suggest checking out my 10 DSLR video shooting tips for beginners. In this video, I'm going to be walking through the settings on your camera so that you can find which settings I talk about in that video and the others amongst my channel to be able to leverage the full power of this video camera that you now own. In my opinion, the most important settings that you need to find on your camera are your ISO, your aperture, your shutter speed, your white balance, your color profiles, the audio input of plugging in mics into your camera and adjusting that level, as well as formatting your memory card. So those are the settings that we're going to run through right now. So just to start out, you want to make sure that you are on the manual mode at the top of the camera. And if you feel that you can't change your dial, you need to hold this down and then turn it. But manual will give you the most options when shooting for video. Then on the back of the camera, in order to adjust your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, it's super simple. All you have to do is tap on the screen and you can move your shutter speed up and down. I highly suggest keeping this at 1/50 or 50, because if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, which more likely than not you are, that is the proper shutter speed for video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then feel free to check out my other video on explaining aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. So for your aperture, same thing, you click on it and you can move it up and down. And for your ISO, it is also the same thing, click on it and move up and down. One thing to note for the aperture with this specific setup, this has the kit lens on it. So this lens, whenever you zoom in or out, the aperture actually is a variable aperture. And you'll know this by looking at your lens, and this one says Canon zoom lens EFS 18 to 135 millimeter. That 18 to 135 millimeter is the zoom of your lens. Then it's 1:3.5 to 5.6. This dash of the 3.5 to 5.6 is referring to your aperture. And when you are at the full extended range of this lens, you will only be able to use a 5.6 aperture, which is kind of a bummer. So if this is the setup that you have, I highly recommend getting a different lens for it, because you're going to struggle in shooting in low light situations if you have this lens only, because 5.6 isn't very low for aperture. Go ahead and check out the description below for a lens that I highly recommend, and it's very affordable. The next setting that you'll need to find is your white balance. And the way that you'll do that is you'll click on menu and you go to the camera icon and down to the second menu within the camera icon, and you click on white balance and you can choose any of these settings. Now, what's great about the 80D as compared to the Rebel series, this actually does allow you to choose a custom color temperature. So if you're finding that your white balance looks a little bit weird, or you're planning to shoot long and so you don't want the light to be changing, but your daylight or your tungsten options are looking weird, then you can actually go into this K and you can change those settings right here by going up or down and adjusting to a manual color temperature. If you don't understand color temperature, don't worry about it, but I do talk about it in some of my other videos, and now you'll at least know where to find it. You can also adjust your white balance in the quick menu by navigating up and down until you hit the point where it says white balance and going left to right to adjust the different options for white balance. Canons are really known for the great colors that can come out of the camera without needing to do anything to it. But if you're looking to have a bit more control on how your footage looks in post-production, for example, maybe you want it to be a little less saturated, a little less contrasty, then you can really change your settings within the picture style profile or picture style menu. So the way that you get to that is you go to menu and then you'll go to the camera icon, the third page, and it'll say picture style. You can choose from all the different options that they have. Generally speaking, it's really good to use a neutral profile because then you have more control in post-production. So I would recommend using a neutral one, and then if you click this info detail set section, you can click on contrast, bring the contrast down a little bit, and the saturation down a little bit as well. Test several different profiles, see what you like. You don't really know what works or what doesn't work until you get into post-production. So really just shoot with several different ones, do a couple tests before you shoot something that is really important. You can also find the color profiles underneath the quick menu and navigate to those by going left and right. When choosing your frame size and frame rate, you have two different options for how to find this. First, you can go to the menu option and you'll go to the camera setting all the way to the fourth page down to where you find movie record quality. When you select that, you have the option to shoot in either MOV or MP4 files. The options for MOV are limited. You only have 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames per second or 1920 by 1080 at 24 frames per second. For what you are doing, and even for whatever I would be doing as well, it does not really matter if you shoot with an MP4 quality file. So go ahead and choose the MP4 quality file, go down to movie recording size, and you'll have a whole lot more options to choose from. Now, the main ones to note here are that you can actually shoot in 60 frames per second, which is slow motion on this camera at 1080p, which is awesome because the Canon Rebel model can only shoot at 720p when in 60 frames per second. So you'll want to be aware of this option here if you ever want to shoot slow motion. Now remember, if you are shooting slow motion, you'll want to change your shutter speed to be 120 instead of 50. So that's something to keep in mind. But whenever you're shooting any sort of normal video content, you'll want to use this 1920 by 1080 and 24 frames per second. So more likely than not, you won't use any of these other settings. You don't really ever need to shoot in 30 frames per second. It looks less cinematic, and I wouldn't recommend shooting in 720p 60 frames per second. So just the top two are the ones that you need, and you just decide, am I shooting in slow-mo or am I not? If you plan to use an external microphone, then you have to know how to adjust the input volume of that microphone. So if you put this in on the top here, then we're going to plug this mic into where it says mic, right there. Then we'll go to menu, and under the camera icon, the fourth page, it will say sound recording. You'll want to set that to manual, and then you can adjust the record level. So what you'll want to do here is you can kind of move this down, and you can see as I'm talking, the audio is moving up and down on the screen, and you'll want the audio to be peaking, as in it goes just as much to be -12. So you'll want to do this when you're standing in front of the microphone. So if you are doing this, then you could flip the screen around and just talk to yourself, blah, 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 blah. And luckily it's a touch screen, so you can just bring it down like that up until the point that you think the levels look good. You can press OK, and your audio levels should be set. One feature I wanted to point out on this camera, which is awesome, is that there is a headphone jack. So when you are deciding what level to be recording, you can actually listen to it and make sure it sounds okay too. And in order to find the volume control, if you click on the quick menu and you move up and down, then you can go over here to volume and you can adjust your volume up and down that way. So you really want to make sure that it sounds relatively good when it's hitting 12. You don't want to boost the volume too much and get an inaccurate listening experience. So just make sure that you're not cranking up the volume, and that's the only reason your mic sounds good. Before any shoot, you're going to want to format your card. In order to do this, you go to Menu, into the gear icon, the first page underneath that, and there you'll see Format Card. Just be sure that before you format the card, you are not erasing anything that is super important. If you know that is the case, go ahead and click Format. I don't have a card in this camera right now, but it'll very easily describe to you, you're about to lose all your footage. Do you want to format? And you want to say yes. The reason that you format before every single shoot is it makes it a lot easier when dropping the footage after the shoot, because you just know that every single thing on that card is relevant to what you just shot. One bonus thing that I'd like to point out on this camera is the annoying auto off feature. Now, every 2 minutes, if you don't touch the camera, then it'll automatically shut off. That might be okay if you don't need it to be on and you really are looking to preserve batteries, but it can also be annoying. So I want to show you how you can turn that off. You'll want to go to the menu and then the gear icon to the auto power off section, and you can either disable this, you could make it 30 minutes or whatever you would like this to be, but it's just good to know that that feature you can change if you're finding that your shot is being turned off too often. Now that you understand the settings on your camera, you're going to need to learn the art of storytelling. So be sure to subscribe and follow along all the DSLR tips that I offer you on this channel and how to craft a story that attracts your audience. I'll see you in the next video.